On this episode of Blue by 90, we introduce our new co-host. Then we move into some basketball talk. Obviously, we have to address Isaiah Todd and Josh Christopher. Those are big misses for us. But then we move on to some basketball recruiting news. We look at where we think the recruiting class is going to wind up. Then we move into COVID-19 talk. I hope everybody's staying safe and social distancing. We talk about how COVID might impact sports going forward. Finally, we wrap it up with some Michigan football talk. So please stay tuned for that. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Blue by 90, and then YouTube is at Blue by 90 Podcast. So thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
This is the University of Michigan.
Touchdown, Michigan!
And midcourt extra pass.
And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole! Down the sideline! Peoples-Jones! Touchdown, Wolverine!
Welcome to Blue by 90, your Michigan Wolverines podcast. We used to be three dudes who talk maize and blue, but we have added a new host. We're introducing Ro. Ro, thanks for coming on the podcast here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to join. I've, been a Michigan fan my entire life here, and I'm excited to talk with three other idiots about it.
Yeah. So, what makes you a Michigan fan? Why Michigan?
Honestly, I really was. My dad was a Michigan fan, so it was pretty much born in me from the beginning. But even when I was little, he was not as into it as I was. I was just a fanatic and started, back in the 90s when things were going better than they were now, it seems. I was that crazy person. I actually remember when I was a kid watching games on Saturdays, and then I would when I had a Michigan flag, and when Michigan would score, I'd like run out into the yard waving the flag like a psycho when I was like 8 years old or something like that. But we used to score a lot back then too, so it was fun. But it's been, I've been around around Ann Arbor for a while now, and been to quite a few games, football and basketball, and more than that. So it's been something that I've been a part of for a long time, and I think there's no going back now. Whether I want to or not, we're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all got those childhood Michigan memories that stick with us. And so we're glad to have you as a co-host on the show. And thanks for coming on board.
Yeah, for sure. All
right. Well, unfortunately, we have to jump from the glory days to some kind of downer news this last 48, 72 hours. Josh Christopher and Isaiah Todd. Guys, you want to jump into some of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I was talking with Ro, that whole night expecting Christopher to sign at 8:24 Pacific time. And, we were staying up hoping it was that time, or like we heard it might be midnight his time, and that would be 3 a.m. for us. And, we 11:24 Eastern time where we're at, he put a post up. I fast forwarded right to the end and saw the Sun Devil logo, and I was like, God damn. And kind of ruined my night. And then 12 hours later, Isaiah Todd gone. He's going pro in Europe or overseas somewhere. So we lost 2 top 15 recruits nationally in a span of 12 hours. So rough time to be a Michigan fan for basketball. That's for sure.
I feel like I'm kind of used to it though. Like I when I heard this, I was like, I get it. It's like, there's probably a lot of Michigan fans like, oh my God, these guys didn't come to our school. Like, dude, whatever. I mean, honestly, like these guys are going to be one and done anyway. I think we got a couple other guys. We got a lot of 4-star guys this year. Like maybe those are the types of guys that will be around the program for a long time and kind of help Juwan Howard kind of like get the ball rolling. I know it's nice to have like these guys, these kind of like a 1-year type of deal. They're really stellar athletes, but sometimes when you're building a program, sometimes you want guys who are going to be there for a couple years. And I think too, like, look at, hey, these are 2 5-star guys. They didn't come to Michigan, but John Beilein went to 2 national championships without any of that, really, So, dude, it can be done. You look at teams last year like Texas Tech and even teams like I don't know, like one team, Purdue, right? They went to the Elite 8 last year. I don't remember anybody from that team except for like Etwan Moore. That was it. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm sorry. I was heartbroken.
Yeah, I think it couldn't be more on brand for Michigan that even when sports are completely canceled, we still get our hearts broken. Like somehow, some way, the universe comes at us. I don't know how that works or what we've done to deserve it, but it still comes at us. But I do think, although it's disappointing and Juwan's going to keep going after 5 stars. I mean, if you think about it, he didn't, come into the picture until May of last year, So these guys weren't even starting or weren't even contacted by Michigan, for the last however many months. So for us to even be in the picture was actually a win, I thought. As much as it is disappointing because we, according to everybody, we had them and then we did it. So that's really the game with 5 stars. It's the Wild West 100%. And you are, whether it's these guys are chasing a bag or looking out for, themselves, one and only. They're not really in it for the team. And if you look at, like Nate said, these guys, aren't many teams that have actually won it with all those one and dones. I think about Kentucky, even when they went 38-0 in the regular season, they ended up losing to Wisconsin, and so I outside of Duke, I think it was a few years ago, I can't remember the year, but there really haven't been that many teams that have had all those one and dones that have won the whole thing. It ends up that you need guys that want to play for you and veteran-led teams, which is actually what we're going to have hopefully next year.
I'd say this too with Josh Christopher. Arizona State honestly is a great fit for him. His brother goes there, so to see that happen, it's not like he was going to some absurd school we weren't expecting him to go there. So for him to go with his brother makes sense, honestly. He's a West Coast guy. I'm gonna say it's hard to get people to come all the way up north, right? Dude, we know the winter sucks. Like, we live here. It's like 6 months you're just going, man, it sucks here, dude. It sucks, right? Like, you can't blame anybody who lives in, like, LA for their entire life and then, like, oh, I'm just going to go, like, to the frozen tundra and live there for 4 years. Or, like, a year, but you know what I mean.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, for sure. But let's jump into some of the recruiting class overall. Obviously, these departures are, not getting these recruits, is pretty impactful for the recruiting class overall. And then on top of that, some of the transfers. So let's dive into some of that.
Yeah. So, the recruiting class, I believe it's technically if Jace Howard gets a scholarship, we're 9th nationally, but if he walks on, we're 12th. So we still got a really good recruiting class. We've got Terrence Williams, who's the number 15 power forward in the class, 85th nationally. Hunter Dickinson, who's a stud, number 6 center in the country in that class, and then 32nd overall. Zeb Jackson, who's been committed for feels like forever, who's 69th nationally and the 10th ranked shooting guard in the class. So we've still got a lot of talent coming in. Like, I don't remember the last time we had a recruiting class ranked that high, even with like under Beilein. Like, kind of Nate and Roe were saying, like, we haven't recruited these 5-star, 4-star guys really. Like, we get, kind of not lower level, but guys that aren't ranked as high and they stick around, and then we have good teams that make deep runs in March. So, those are some of the recruits we have, and then we've got Mike Smith, who's transferring from Columbia. Was a point guard, looks like a solid scorer. played a lot at Columbia. He averaged 37.7 minutes per game. There's 40 minutes in a game. He averaged, he's playing over 90% of the game when he's in there. So hopefully he'll be a guy who can make an impact right away and kind of take over for Simpson. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what happens next year and what the lineup's going to look like, depending if Livers comes back or if he goes to the draft. It kind of sounds like he's going to come back because I think I read somewhere that the scouts were saying he may need another year to improve athletically and build up some other traits. But his stats were he was by far the best player on our team last year. He was shooting 40% from three. His free throw percentage was almost 96%. He was making with the free throw line. If he comes back, I have a very, very high hopes for next year.
I like having Mike Smith on the team. I think that's kind of good because to get a kind of veteran point guard, I feel like something we're just like used to now as like Michigan fans. I think that's a huge kind of benefit too for Juwan. Having a guy who knows how to run a system. Plus, I just love his name, Mike Smith. How more generic can you get from that?
Well,
sounds like a Sims character.
Yeah.
We went from we got screwed by two guys with two first names, so I'd rather have the generic name guy. We had Isaiah Todd and Josh Christopher. You can never trust a guy with two first names.
I love a team, like a Michigan team that just has like the most generic names like of all time, like Bob, like I don't know, name something. Bob, Mike, and John and Tim, Sorry.
Well, we went from this recruiting class. We went from the number one recruiting class in the Big Ten. We lost 2 5-stars, and we're still at the number one recruiting class in the Big Ten. So
that's huge.
I think it says a lot about what Juwan is doing right now. And there was absolute hysteria and panic yesterday in the Michigan fan base, and it's understood because those are big recruits, but everyone's saying that we're not going to be good next year. We're going 500. We can't do it. It's way too soon to be saying that. And you have guys that are coming back and Eli Brooks and Brandon Johns, who emerged at the end of the year. Austin Davis is coming back for his 5th year, who is going to help Hunter Dickinson tremendously. He's got Austin Davis, to me, was the most improved last year by far. And with his, offensive game and leadership styles and things like that, Hunter Dickinson is 7'2". So if you thought Teskey was big, he's even bigger. Yeah, he's huge. And so for him to be that big already, put him in Camp Sanderson for a year, this dude's going to be legit, And so we're going to have some freshmen getting some minutes next year for sure. Especially with DeJulius's departure, we're going to have probably Zeb come in and play some minutes in the guard role. And so, when you look at what we lost last year, Simpson played 33 minutes a game. Teskey played 27, DeJulius 20, and Castleton 8. So, when you're looking at that, that's a lot of minutes to replace. But we're gonna have to replace or get some of those young guys and just kind of throw them into the fire right away. And especially because Juwan, unlike Beeline, who had a 7-man rotation and would never even, rarely go to an 8th guy, Juwan's playing 10, 11, 12 guys in a game. So there's a lot of guys rotating, getting minutes, which I like because these young guys need the experience, especially, early in the year and in those Big Ten games. And so I like this class. It's still top in the Big Ten. Having a 12th ranked recruiting class in your first year coaching, never even been a head coach before. Come on, we got to give props to Juwan Howard where it's deserved here.
Yeah, and even somebody we forgot to mention, Franz Wagner. He was the guy in the beginning of the year. Honestly, I didn't think he should be playing in there at all. He looked like a friggin' baby deer running down the court. He just looked lanky and uncoordinated. But, throughout the year, he improved like tremendously. I think he's a great defender. He's he's definitely improving as a shooter. So I'm excited to see if he could improve that much from the beginning of last year and coming back from an injury to the end of last season. I'm very excited to see what he can do this coming season with another year under his belt, another off season to be able to kind of fine tune some things. We, like you guys were saying, like we got to put it all in perspective. Like Juwan Howard's got a 12th ranked recruiting class in his first recruiting class. We've got a ton of talent coming in still, and we've got experienced guys that are sticking around, and possibly Livers might even be coming back. So we will definitely be way better than a 500 team.
Yeah, I mean, my gut is telling me that both Franz and Livers come back. Livers has been on the record to say that if it's not a guaranteed deal, then he's not going. And the guaranteed deals stop at the end of the first round. And so he's a 100 on the draft board. So I don't see him leaving. He's doing the right thing by testing the waters. I don't blame him at all for that. He's checking it out, and so is Franz. And so I see both of them coming back, which are huge. And then, with Mike Smith coming in too, there's the difference last year that I saw was, when Livers was out, we needed Brandon Johns to come in and hit threes, and he did some of the time, but it was it was just such a different lineup. So if you have, those guys come back, and then Mike Smith comes in, and if he can be that elite 3-point shooter for us that comes in and bangs those out, I mean, that's going to make a huge difference. Because last year, and I'm hoping he improves, Nunez was supposed to be that kind of 8th or 9th guy that comes in and hits shots, and he just never did. And so even if Mike Smith has lesser minutes, which I don't think he will, but even if he did, and he could come in and hit the occasional three, it really gives us a big bump in what we're doing.
Right. So it sounds like Juwan is really putting together a good squad here. But what's kind of the expectation coming out for next year? I mean, where would we expect this team to finish, and where will we be disappointed if they didn't make it there?
I mean, personally, I think I would expect this team coming in, again, with Livers coming back as a big factor. I'd expect this team to be better than last year. Honestly, personally, I loved Xavier Simpson. I thought he was a great leader. I thought he could be a great scorer when we needed him to be one. But I think Mike Smith can be that guy. And then with all the talent the freshman talent that we have coming in, and Franz, the way I think he can improve, I mean, I think we're top 3 team at least in the Big Ten next year. Like, should expect a Big Ten title.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say should expect a Big Ten title. I think that's probably a little bit. I think it's a little too much. I don't know. I'm still on the very conservative kind of. Okay, let's just get a win in the tournament. I think the team we had this year, I'm pretty confident that they would have won one game in the tournament, right? That was my expectation for that team, right? Now, I think it's like, okay, let's take it up another level. Let's pretend that we won a game this year in the tournament, right? Let's get 2. Let's get to the Sweet 16. I think with the amount of talent, like you said, Livers, Wagner, guys coming in, guys who are experienced, right? Sweet 16 should be the expectation. Maybe Big Ten championship might be a little bit too much, I think, right now. But I would say, top 3, 4 finish in the Big Ten, Sweet 16 title, or Sweet 16. I think I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that what happened this past year is we came out absolutely on fire in Atlantis, and without Atlantis, we wouldn't have had any expectations at all, right? Like, we came this season, thinking, all right, 500, maybe make it to the tournament, and this is a win. How many people in a coaching change like that, especially so late in the year, how many teams really do as well as they did? I thought they exceeded expectations, but the fact that we came out and beat those teams that we did, the Gonzaga and Creighton's early in the year, all of a sudden it was like we're a top 5 team, and we fell off. And so I don't, without that happening so early in the year where it seemed like we peaked, we really did after it was all said and done, we exceeded expectations. So with that being said, going into this year, I think at the end of the year, our expectations were brought down a little bit because we ended the year on kind of a skid and a low point. So I would say, but I agree with Jack. I'm not going to go ahead and say we're going to be the favorite to win a Big Ten title, but we should be contending. And the thing is, if you look around the Big Ten, there's not really another team. It's probably going to be very similar to it was this year, where everyone's beating up on each other. It's a very competitive league. I don't see any one front runner, especially with Michigan State losing Cassius Winston. So without Cassius, I mean, I don't know who's even going to be their point guard. Probably Rocket Watts. I know it's not going to be fun for them. So who knows what's going to happen with them? But I saw, people were kind of dogging on Mike Smith and saying, he killed it at Columbia, but he'd be the 12th best point guard in the Big Ten. I can't even name another point guard in the Big Ten now. So I don't know where those points are being, are coming from. But I don't see there any reason why we can't be in the top, 3 or 4, like Jack said, in the Big Ten, competing for a championship next year.
Well, good. I like this because Jack gives me the optimism, and then Nate brings me back to reality, and then Ro puts it all in perspective. So good. Now I know where to root. Okay. Well, switch topics a little bit here. Obviously, we got all the COVID stuff going down now. We're all in quarantine, staying at home, and we're testing out the Skype podcasting here. So far, so good. But seeing as how this could go on further into the year, and it could affect fall sports, right? And so it could impact, football season. So how is COVID going to impact sports going forward for the rest of this year? What do you think?
I know Ro had a really good point on this, and we talked about it the other day. So I'm gonna let Ro take this one right away.
Well, I saw Dr. Fauci said that, sports can go on right now if we don't have crowds, right? So I think that actually could be the best thing possible for Michigan football this year is if we don't play football without crowds. And the reason for it is Game 1 and Game 12 are going to be probably our 2 hardest games this year. We're on the road at Washington to start the year, and then in Columbus, where we haven't won since I think I was in diapers. And so without crowds, with the way Don Brown runs his defense, we give up a touchdown on the first drive just about every single game. If we were to go into Washington, give up a touchdown on the first drive, their crowd's going absolutely bonkers. Same thing in Columbus. And then we get into a hole. We're not mentally tough, and all of a sudden we look and we're 6 minutes into the game down 21-0. Without a crowd, they can go score. We can regather ourselves. There's no fans to get our team all rattled, and then we'll be all right. So that's my hot take on having no crowds and how it can be just actually a positive for Michigan football this year.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, I love this. That Washington Stadium is supposed to be super loud, right? So that would be huge benefit for us because apparently we have like the weakest egos ever in sports. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Say though too, here's what would happen: they win all the games. There's no crowd, and then you get all the people going like, "Harbaugh didn't do anything." And they just start crying again. I mean, just expect that to happen. Nothing positive will ever be said. Period. So just plan on it.
Oh, Feinbaum will go crazy if that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'll come up with anything to create some crazy story.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm worried about with no fans or anything like that. I mean, obviously this is a very serious pandemic going on, and this is a very trivial concern, but tailgating, like that means no tailgating. I can't tailgate.
It's the best time of the year. I mean, that's what keeps me going for the 6 months of off season. I don't know what I'm gonna do if we can't have tailgating.
We're gonna have to host like Zoom calls for people to join in and tailgate with us.
Seriously, yeah, we could do a
Barstool's like Instagram page and just spend like 3 hours there.
Yeah, another thing regarding a lot of this, staying at home. It's impacting recruiting, obviously, but it's also impacting the team's ability to gather and practice, right? A lot of these teams are missing out on winter practices, summer practices, all that kind of stuff. And so that could tie over into the QB battle, right? So right back to Joe Milton versus Dylan McCaffrey. Any update on that since we last talked about it?
Yeah, I think, and you guys haven't heard any of my takes yet on Milton and McCaffrey. So I know there's some differing opinions in this crew. I am on the McCaffrey train. So let's make that clear right now. I think that McCaffrey is the more, stable guy. He's the more Harbaugh type guy who he's going to make the right decisions, not, throw into double coverage and force things, which is what Harbaugh has really tried to do since he got here with, starting with Rudock and Spate and even Shea. Shea started and came in as a guy who's just going to, run around with his head cut off and throw it anywhere he wants. And Harbaugh took him down 10 different notches and made him into a guy that wasn't going to make those mistakes. So I think McCaffrey's more his style, although Milton is definitely a guy with unlimited potential, it seems, because he's got the arm, he's got the body, he's a big boy. And so but I am on the McCaffrey train for sure, because I think he's the guy who's gonna over a span of 12 games, he's a guy who can get it done, especially being a leader. And so I think that as far as COVID-19 and how they haven't been able to train, it's 100% advantage McCaffrey. Because Milton's the guy that I think is probably gunning to take McCaffrey's job right now. McCaffrey got snaps last year, and actually, yeah, he's gotten way more snaps than Milton has. I think it was clear that last year McCaffrey was the 2 and Milton was the 3. So I do feel for Milton here a little bit, where he hasn't gotten the chance in spring ball to show what he can do. But it'll make the decision much harder for Harbaugh and Gaddis in the come August, if we do have football and training camp.
100%. Nate, tell me why Joe Milton is the guy.
And I'm super biased just because like when he was in high school, I was like, that's a dude. That's what we need. That's Cam Newton. Cam Newton 2.0. Let's just go with it. Just put him in as a freshman. I'm that type of guy, and I'm sure a lot of people would hate me for that. But dude, I just think a guy like that who is that type of arm, and I think he's pretty shifty and he's pretty fast. Like, I mean, I really think that he's the type of guy who can take us up that next level. Like, you can win a championship with that type of talent. You can win a championship with that, period. And that's what I want. I want a championship, so I can just know, like, I'm not 80 years old feeling like a Cubs fan. Okay.
Well, he makes a good point, though. I mean, Milton was the guy gunning for McCaffrey's job, and now he's not getting the reps that he needed to improve, right? So, I mean, I definitely understand that perspective, and I think you're right on the money, Ro. Jack, what do you think about that?
So I'm with both of you and I'll explain myself. So McCaffrey, like you said, Ro, he's the stable guy. Like we know what we're gonna get out of him. Honestly, I think his athleticism is highly underrated. He is fast as hell. Like he can, if he
He's
needs
a
to escape the
McCaffrey.
pocket, he's a McCaffrey, right? Like his biggest man, 16 million a year. I wish I was making that. But I think it's McCaffrey's job to lose. I do think we can win with McCaffrey. I think he was the guy that should have been playing last year. And the thing where it makes it difficult that we're not going to have spring ball and there can't be this competition is Harbaugh's seen McCaffrey for what, 2-3 years now, where Milton has only been there for 1 or 2 years. And if they can't really battle it out in the spring to really, separate each other, I think that hurts Milton for sure. But Nate, like you said, man, Milton's the type of guy that would go to Ohio State or LSU or Alabama or like a Texas, like a big name school like that, and will just like make highlight play after highlight play with that big arm. And I mean, I'm a guy, when I play NCAA or NBA 2K, I'm shooting 3-pointers and I'm throwing Hail Marys. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see deep balls, and I want to see, wide open receivers that get just hit right in the money. So I believe it'll be McCaffrey's job. I think he's earned it. But if Milton's in there, I will not be upset at all.
Dude, I'll tell you what, I will not be upset this year if somebody can just throw a deep ball. Just throw a deep ball, and make it on target. I'll be happy. So
just not overthrow it. Just at least give him a chance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from inside Schembechler Hall last year, especially early on in training camp, the word was that McCaffrey, talent-wise and everything else, was by far the best quarterback in that QB room. But I think Harbaugh is super loyal to his guys. He really loved Shea as a QB and as a person. I'm not sure why, but he wanted that guy who had the experience and all that stuff. But I think we're going to be good either way. And I think having two guys that are very, good and could do the job is huge for us. If you look back at, Ohio State in 2014, they had 3 different QBs on their way to a national title run. You need to have that depth. And one thing with COVID-19 is if it was, if they got through spring practice here, say COVID-19 didn't happen, and they got through spring practice here and Milton realized McCaffrey's, the starter, he would have been looking at transferring. But now he's probably not going to have that option. So we're for sure going to have him, I think, come August and September, which, selfishly as a Michigan fan, I want him to stay and I want us to have a deep QB room, which I think is key, especially with injuries that McCaffrey has had in the past.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Great point. Yeah, great point. Well, we also, they say you set up the pass with the run, and we got a lot of good running backs here coming in, right? I mean, we have a great running back room, and then we have Blake Corum coming in. Great running back. What do you guys think about, our slowly developing, RBU coming soon, right? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think we have loads of talent. I mean, Charbonnet is obviously very talented, had a, I think, successful freshman year. Haskins kind of emerged out of nowhere. And right now, he's my number 1 on the depth chart. Hassan Haskins is my number 1. Chris Evans is back. And his freshman year was unbelievable. And then Blake Corum's coming in. I know, Nate, you're super high on him. Like, I like him. He's fast. He's strong. He seems like just a monster out there. But again, it depends on the O-line and kind of like how they develop. We lost 4 starters, but to stick with the running backs, I hate myself sometimes because I get so optimistic and I'm so like tunnel vision for like Michigan football. But I mean, we've got to have one of the most talented running back rooms in the country.
For sure. I mean, our recruits are just killing it there, right? I mean, I read something about Zach Charbonnet, and I can't remember. I think it was an article in Sports Illustrated. The guy was saying Charbonnet might get similar snaps that he got this year. So don't expect him to be rushing for 1,000 yards and 20 touchdowns or something like that, because there's so much depth in that running back room, right? You're going to have Chris Evans and Hassan Haskins, and I'm sure they'll even put Blake Corum in there.
So I think the problem there is, I mean, we can have all the depth in the world, but you got to have your number one guy, I think. You have to pick one. It's just like a quarterback. You obviously can do it by committee sometimes, but if we're, splitting up snaps between 3-4 people, nobody can get into a rhythm. And it's, if you look at Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, I guarantee you they have a backup 5-star that's sitting on the bench and not getting many snaps, right? Dobbins last year was the guy. They have studs that are sitting on the bench. We can't just be like, okay, these guys have talent. We need to get them some snaps. Pick the guy and let's go with it and get them into a rhythm. I want to see Charbonnet or Haskins or whoever it is get 20-plus carries a game, because it seems like, all of a sudden, a guy is killing it. He's seeing the field, he's seeing the holes, and then all of a sudden he's pulled and we don't see him for 4 more plays. It's frustrating from a fan's perspective, because I felt like we didn't have much consistency last year and in the past. I felt like with Higdon and Evans, we had a good 1-2 punch there. And it was just them two, and they split the snaps, pretty well, with Higdon obviously getting the more the better of them. But I can't, see us going, well, I can see it happening, but I don't want it to, where we have, Haskins, Charbonnet, and Evans, and then maybe Blake Corum getting in there all in one game. None of these guys are going to be able to get into a rhythm and really get going in any game.
And bro, that's good too, because when we look at, like you said, Alabama, when they had that string of, the string is still going. They had Mark Ingram. He was the guy, but they still had Trent Richardson back there. Then when Trent Richardson was the guy, they had Derrick Henry back there. Now they've got Najee, and they've got their number one guy that they can go to. And then if we need, to take a break and give the guy, a breather, then we've got a number 2 to put in there. But when you do it by committee like that, and there's 3 or 4 guys that are going in, or even just 2 guys that are switching out in a series, it kills the rhythm. Everybody has their own tendencies, and it's got to be tough for the O-line to kind of help block for them if each running back has their own tendencies and they don't know what to do. So I'm with you on that. We need to have a number 1 running back. I hope it's Haskins, because I think he showed a lot last year and I liked it a lot. So I'm hoping they pick a number 1 and they kind of just let that be as it is. And I'd rather not see a running back by committee.
I would disagree. And the reason I would disagree is because when you have guys who have different talents, it opens up the playbook more, right? So you can do a lot more different things, right? So I think you do have a lot, the things that I like. So Charbonnet is a guy that you can give the ball to. He can run up the middle. He's kind of like a power back, but he does have some elusiveness, right? And now you get somebody like Blake Corum, who's a small guy. He's hard to see. He's super fast. He can hit the hole hard. And he's really shifty. And so I think you can do a lot with a player like that. And then I also think guys like Haskins, you can rotate in. I think Chris Evans is a solid guy. You can set him up in any different way. So I think as a whole, I think it's better to just have them know what kind of plan you want to have going into the game, and then try and execute that. And then you also have the opportunity to see in the first quarter, hey, is my what's working, what's not, right? And you can adjust from there. So I think obviously the more talent, the better. That's my kind of approach on it. I would like to see some guy emerge though and be that's the guy. I think we have been missing that at Michigan, where it's that dude. Thank God we got that dude on our team, because he's winning the game. Ohio State has had an it guy on their team since I can remember. Maurice Claret. Oh, they won. They won. That's it. Screw all the other players. They got that dude and that guy's taking them to the promised land, right? Texas, right? Oh, Vince Young, game's done. Without him, they're not even there. Like, you need guys who are going to emerge and be so good that the other team can't stop you, right? So I mean, that being said, we need a line. I'm not saying just no line shows up, but I'm really hoping that a couple of these guys emerge, but I'm really hoping that they do work all these guys in and try and confuse the defense, because I think Gaddis really wants to be able to open up his playbook. And I think last year Shea had no arm. So it was like, well, we got to just run the ball. And then, you put 8 people in the box and it's done. They're not going to get anything. So,
well, this does really scare me, the fact that we don't have enough practice time and we have all these new linemen, right? I mean, this is where I'm really happy that we have Ed Warner. And I'm like, okay, at least I know we got a really good coach. What do you guys think about the line? I think we got, 4 replacements there?
4. Yeah. I mean, I'm pumped for Mayfield. I think he is an absolute stud. He's an athlete. He can move around really well. He's strong. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the guy who shut down Chase Young in the Ohio State game last year, right?
That's what I heard.
I thought it was
right.
Reddish,
So I mean,
right?
No, because Chase Young's he's an edge. He's a defensive end. So like he'd be coming because Bredesen's a guard. So I mean, I'm sure Bredesen was on there to like double team him at times, but I believe Mayfield was the guy that was on Young, and I mean he did obviously an amazing job. So I'm excited to see him. Filiaga was a big recruit when he signed with us. He was a 4-star guy. I'm pretty sure played like Army All-American game. I believe he's projected to be a starter. A couple of random guys that I honestly can't put a name out there, but Ryan Hayes. I remember Ryan Hayes played a little bit last year, and I'm pretty sure he was a converted tight end that they turned into a tackle. And he's super athletic. Apparently Warner loves his basketball players. So Ryan Hayes played basketball or something in high school and football. So he's another athletic guy. I think he's projected to play left tackle and Mayfield to be on the other side. As far as the other 2 guys, I can't think of their names, but I'm excited to see what they can do. I think we'll have 2 athletic tackles, which will be great to stop the edge rush. But I mean, of course, it's about the line to get the run game going. You can't do anything without an offensive line. So I'm interested to see what they do, because we're gonna have 4 new starters, and especially like we don't have spring practice to be able to have these guys all together working together in sync for all the plays we need to run. So obviously I'm nervous, but I believe in Warner, and I think there's an upside for sure.
Yeah, I think that the thing that we'll struggle with most is on the offensive line. It's similar to when a basketball team is coming in and practicing together and playing together. You have to know where the other guy is at all time and know their tendencies, and working together is more important than it is if you're the biggest guy out there. You have to know that the guy next to you he's going to take your gap and you're going to take the next gap and stuff like that. And it's gonna be tough for these guys with no spring practice to work together and get to know each other and know each other's tendencies. And so I hope maybe they're social distancing in someone's backyard right now, lining up against a couple dummy pads or something like that. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest part, especially with COVID-19 for us, bringing these new guys in, because you just have to work together as one unit as an offensive line. And to me, that's the most important thing, more than, being 350 pounds and being the strongest guy out there.
Some of my thought too is I think, like, I'm not necessarily planning for the fall for that to be the season. I really think, you're going to have a lot of coaches come out and say like, hey, this is garbage. Like, I need to get my guys prepared. Like, guys like Nick Saban or, going to be like, just throw a fit. Right. And then, and it makes sense, right? If you don't have time to prep the way that you normally do, like, I think that's a disadvantage. And, you throw guys out there, they've only had, a couple weeks of practice and get them warmed up, more potential for injury. I think they should move the season back to the spring, get it warmed up. I look at, hey, everybody's saying like, June. I mean, are we gonna, who knows? So like, if this is really gonna play out through the whole summer, and then we gotta keep social distancing and all this stuff, like, how do you get 60, 80 guys in a locker room, like making sure everybody's like, safe, right? So I think it would be a smart thing to move the season back, just have instead of spring ball, you get fall ball, right? And then, kind of, I don't know. I'm not the dude making these decisions. Do you see that Mike Pence? He met with some of the NCAA like college football like board or something. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't. I missed that. What was that all about?
It's pretty much that.
Nothing came out of it. He just kind of met with them.
It was just kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
They're just talking about like pro football compared to college football, right? And so like they're talking about, for instance, like the NBA, they're saying, hey, we can like play the rest of the season out, but we're gonna have to do it under like these certain circumstances, right? Players are gonna have to be in a hotel, they're gonna have to be tested every 2 weeks, and then they can go out and play. And what I think a lot of the NCAA guys are saying is we don't have that capability, and these kids are going to they're going all over the place, right? They're meeting with their friends, they're going to class, they're interacting with a lot of people, especially like college campuses, which are really big, like international kind of hubs to a point, right? So they're a little bit nervous about, it's like, yeah, it's easier to do this in the NBA, but it's a little bit more difficult to do it in college. So
right. Okay.
That's pretty much all that came out of it. So.
And that's a big thing too. These guys are in college, right? Like, if it's not safe for fans to gather in a stadium, how are we going to deem it safe for them to be on these kids to be on a field playing football against each other, right? Like, I was listening to, I think it was either Get Up or First Take on ESPN, and that just, if they do that, that just takes the amateur right out of it, and like they should be getting compensated. Because it's ridiculous, right? These guys are student athletes, and I mean, obviously, I want to see a football season, but if that's the case, I mean, I honestly, I would be shocked if we have a football season from everything that we've heard with everything that's going on. So I hope we do, but
I saw a stat today that the NFL's total revenue, ticket prices and ticket revenue is only 15% of their total revenue. For NCAA, it depends on the university, but it's up to 75%. So that they're completely flipped. So the NFL could possibly play with no fans, but I can't see the NCAA playing with no fans, because these schools, and for most of the schools in the athletics budgets, the football revenue powers the entire athletic department. They pay for the softball team, the lacrosse team, all these non-revenue sports. The football revenue that's coming in pays for those to keep operating. So you're going to see a lot of sports cut. I saw, who was it the other day? There was a D1 school that cut their men's soccer team already. And so that's going to happen more and more, which is so sad. But I just don't know what's going to happen, because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you have it, then it's safety. If you have the season, then you're putting everyone at risk. If you don't, then people are losing jobs, and schools or sports are going to be cut. And then if you have if you say you have football in the spring, okay, so then when's the 2021 season going to be? Are you going to go from they end that season in June, and then their first game is already again in September, the following September? It's just kind of a snowball effect that this is going to affect everything for years and years to come, it's just a crazy thought.
Yeah, that's very well said. I'm just glad we're all doing our part and staying indoors, because I want my football season in September. So
staying indoors and drinking beer.
That's right. All right. So you guys got anything else to tag on to COVID talk here?
I mean,
No.
thank you to all of our, first responders and healthcare
Sure.
workers and essential
Yep.
workers. I mean, without, everything that you guys are doing, we'd be fucked, honestly. So, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. That's well said, Jack. If nobody has anything else to tag on here, I think we'll just sign off. So we'll say thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Check us out on YouTube. Feel free to send us an email or something, blueby90@gmail.com. And other than that, go blue.